Hey guys, today's video is partially a request and partially me just fucking around as usual. I'll start with the request. This was requested by Jester. Thank you so much for this. He asked that I cover the story or urban legend, I guess, of Brian Peppers. I'd never heard of this, and I'm an avid Snopes person, follower thing. And I'd never heard of this. And when I looked it up, there wasn't a ton of information on it, but there was a Snopes article, which made me think, I'll cover this because it's probably only going to be a very short video if I just covered this. And then why not just Snopes deep dive? So let's get started with Brian Peppers. There was this photograph that was going around the internet in the early 2000s of a man named Brian Peppers who was a registered sex offender in Ohio, and people questioned obviously if it was real because of his physical appearance. It seemed like a cruel joke, like either someone with a physical deformity or some type of birth defect or something. Someone took their picture and put it online and said, oh, this is a sex offender. But it turned out to be true. So here's a better shot of the full image. According to Snopes, the picture depicted a then 34-year-old man named Brian Peppers, who was listed in that registry due to a conviction for gross sexual imposition in Lucas County, Ohio in 1998. Again, a lot of people thought it was fake. Either, like I said, someone's photograph used for the story, or even something that was photoshopped. And so the people at Snopes contacted the Ohio Attorney General's office, who told them this is a accurate photograph. And one person who lived either in or near Lucas County actually knew someone who went to school with Brian. So they were able to provide yearbook photos from when he was younger. So you can see in these photographs that he always has sort of had an unusual physical appearance. And I say that with no offense. I just mean that he shows physical symptoms of whatever his disorder is. Now, it's unknown exactly what it was, but according to Snopes, it might have been due to a condition such as Apert syndrome, or Cruzon syndrome, which I've never heard of. And he was actually wheelchair bound at the time of the photo. According to the sexual offenders registry, he was living in a nursing home at the time and had been sentenced to 30 days in jail with another 5 years probation for gross sexual imposition. And Brian actually passed away at the age of 43 in February of 2012. Now, I know this seems like not a lot of information, but that's because that's really all the information there is on him. Any other articles that I tried pulling up basically were just regurgitations of the same information, because it seems like whatever happened was just that. It was just some incident that happened, and I'm sure that the victim is I'm sure that the victim's information was kept private as it should be. So this isn't like a serial killer profile where there's a long history and, people have delved into the person's life and tried to figure out the backstory. It's something that's floated around on the internet, and this is as much verification as anybody's probably going to get on him. So Snopes has completely changed their layout since the last time I've been on here, because it's been a long time since I've been on here. I don't like it. I need to find the old I need to find the old layout. It was laid out by topic. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. In October of 2017, fact check, was Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street based on a real serial murder? And now it's my understanding that it was not. It was actually based on an article in a newspaper about people dying in their sleep of what seemed like just terrible nightmares or something. That's what I know of it, but let's see. So this is false. It's not based on a real life serial murder. Guys, if you see stuff like this on Facebook, please don't just believe it. Please don't just repost it. Check the facts. This is such a joke. If I saw this on Facebook, I would instantly think it was spam or something. But it seems like there's a whole group of people that just believe whatever they see on Facebook, and it's so sad. So Wes Craven said that he read an article in the LA Times about a family who had escaped the killing fields in Cambodia and managed to get to the U.S. Things were fine, and then suddenly the young son started having very disturbing nightmares. He told his parents he was afraid that if he slept, the thing chasing him would get him, so he tried to stay awake for days at a time. When he finally fell asleep, his parents thought this crisis was over. Then they heard screams in the middle of the night. By the time they got to him, he was dead. He died in the middle of a nightmare. Here was a youngster having a vision of horror that everyone older was denying. And that became the central line of Nightmare on Elm Street. So yeah, that's basically what I had heard, but I didn't know the background to it. It sounds like he had like post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm not sure the actual cause of his death. I would assume it would be something like cardiac arrest or something from the way it sounds. This is pissing me off. This isn't laid out the way it used to be. I want old Snopes. Give me old Snopes. Please. Did a cursed mummy sink with the Titanic? No. I actually remember buying little booklets at the grocery store when I was a little kid back in the 90s. And they would have these little booklets, like, about that big. And it was, like, different conspiracy theories or facts you didn't know and stuff. And I bought one, and it had this fact about a mummy being on the Titanic. And it was some, like, ancient Egyptian princess or something like that. And she was cursed. And they put her in the storage area of the Titanic with, like, you know, like where the car was where Rose and Jack had sex. And supposedly that was the reason they hit an iceberg and stuff, but apparently that never happened. There was plans of a mummy being transported by the Titanic, I believe, but it never happened. The mummy never left the museum, so it's false. True. Oh, see, this one says true in the title. I like that. True. Flying lawnmower death. A spectator at a 1979 football game who was killed by a flying model lawnmower. Is this where that vine came from? It's my favorite vine in the world. Not killing anybody, but a flying lawnmower to a Mariah Carey song. So it was supposed to fly over the stadium and maneuver around the stadium, engage in aerial dogfights, and showcased flying model planes crafted in unusual shapes. Partway through the show, a model plane crashed into the football field. It nosedived into the stands about 5 rows behind the Patriots bench on the third base side of the stadium. It struck 2 spectators, 20-year-old John Bowen of Nashua, New Hampshire, and 25-year-old Kevin Rourke of Lynn, Massachusetts. Both men suffered serious head injuries from the incident. Oh wow, Bowen died of his injuries 4 days later. The other man was eventually discharged from the hospital. Was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre based on a true story? Kind of. Basically, I don't even need the Snopes article for this. I think it's loosely based on Ed Gein. There was not a family that it was based on that, you know, had a kid in the family that hacked everybody up with the chainsaw. That wasn't it. Spider eggs in bubble yum. I actually want to read this one because that was a big... Spider eggs were, like, the biggest rumor when I was a kid, I feel like. People would talk about don't ever lick an envelope when you mail something because there could be spiders and cockroaches and stuff liked the glue of the envelopes for some reason, and they would lay their eggs there. And if you licked it and you cut your tongue like a paper cut, an egg would get inside your tongue, and then the stuff would grow to like a boil. And once you went to the doctor to get it cut open, bam, there's spiders. If you have arachnophobia, I'm sorry. False. No bubble yum chewing gum containing spider eggs. Yeah, I remember teachers telling us those stories. Like, why our teachers were telling us, I don't... So that we wouldn't lick envelopes and stuff, but those were the days before we could verify stuff on the internet, so we were all just fending for ourselves. It was the Wild West out there. Does Coca-Cola's script label show a person snorting cocaine? Oh, I do remember there was one about ice cubes and something really dirty. Yeah, risque Coca-Cola poster. If I can show, like, parts of it, I will. I want to see the snorting Coke one. Does Coca-Cola's script label show a person snorting cocaine? False. Okay, that's a stretch. Who came up with that? Risque Coca-Cola poster. So it was over, I think it was like pouring Coke over a glass of ice. Yeah. And I'm just going to show you this part with this nice ad covering it. This woman's hair, her nose, and her open mouth going towards something. And it says, feel the curves. It's like zoomed in over this, like, these ice cubes at the bottom of this bottle. Oh, God, I think I showed it. Oh, I remember this. Okay, so this is different. This is one that I used to read on here because this is one that I did and it freaked me out. This is back in the MySpace days. So, this is so stupid as an adult reading this, but when I was like, I don't know, like in 8th or 9th grade, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. But it was like this whole thing that went around, and it was like all these steps. And it would be like, New York City has 11 letters in it. Afghanistan has 11 letters in it. All these different names and stuff have 11 letters. New York is the 11th state. First plane crashing into the Twin Towers was flight number 11. Flight 11 was carrying 92 passengers. 9 plus 2 is 11. Like, anybody could reach for this type of stuff. But when it says, now this is where things get totally eerie. And I remember this and being like, oh my gosh. But it said, open Microsoft Word and do the following. Type in capital letters Q33 space NY. This is the flight number of the first plane to hit one of the Twin Towers. Highlight the Q33NY. Change the font size to 48 because you got to make it big and scary. And then change the actual font to Wingdings. What do you think now? It said. And it would do, let me see. Oh, it's not even on here. I'm going to have to do it. I'm just going to have to act it out for you guys. All right, guys. Brace yourselves. All right, in all caps, we're going to type Q33 space NY. We're going to highlight it, and we're going to change the font size to 48, and we're going to change the actual font. Oh my God, my Word document doesn't even want to do it. It's so scared. It's so scared. I'm going to just change it to the Friday the 13th font. That'll be scary enough. Where's Wingdings? Where's Wingdings? Did they take it away? Where is Wingdings? There it is. Oh, you guys. A plane in front of 2 pieces of paper is death to the Jewish star. Can't believe it. I can't believe it. This is the scariest thing I've ever read. Alright, we're moving on to Disney now. You know, like after you watch a scary movie, you need to watch a Disney movie? That's what we're going to do. Oh wow, there's only 6 pages of Disney stuff. Is the word sex hidden in The Lion King? Yes, it is. So here's a yellow one. This means legend, which was basically, I believe, kind of like a, yeah, technically, but not really. Because what it was supposed to be was SFX, I believe. Like special effects. Like the special effects team giving themselves a shout out. And the F had a tail to it, so yeah, SFX. Oh, this one I believe was true. Who stripped Jessica Rabbit? I remember this one back in the day. Legend. So let's see what see? So basically they did, but they didn't draw anything pornographic. Does the minister in The Little Mermaid get an erection? I think we've all seen that one. So this one is so interesting to me because I never thought much of it when I was younger, but now this other theory about it is so freaky. There's always been a rumor that Walt Disney was cryogenically frozen, and apparently the conspiracy theory is that that's why Disney made a movie titled Frozen, so that when you Googled Walt Disney Frozen, it wouldn't come up. Like, nobody could look it up anymore. 9 guests have lost their lives on Disneyland attractions as of September 2003. And they had to say that All of the deaths, save the 2 most recent, were the result of guests who apparently ignored safety instructions. There was a 15-year-old boy who was killed when he tried to stand up on the Matterhorn bobsleds. He lost his balance and was thrown from the sled to the track below, fracturing his skull and ribs, causing internal injuries, and he died 3 days later. That was in 1964. In 1966, a 19-year-old boy was killed when he attempted to sneak into Disneyland along the monorail track. A train was coming and he jumped below the track. He climbed down into a fiberglass canopy beneath the track, but the clearance wasn't enough. The oncoming train struck and killed him, dragging his body 30 to 40 feet down the track. In 1967, a 17-year-old boy was killed when he exited his people mover car as the ride was passing through a tunnel. He slipped as he was jumping from car to car, and he was crushed to death beneath the wheels of oncoming cars. In 1973, an 18-year-old, I guess it was a boy. Yeah. Sorry, his name was foreign to me, so I wasn't sure. He and his brother, so they wanted to go over on Tom Sawyer Island, and they stayed there past closing time. And rather than shout out for help or anything, they decided to swim across the river. But the younger brother couldn't swim, so the older brother tried to carry him on his back. And the older brother went underwater, basically sunk underwater. And the younger brother managed to stay afloat by doggy paddling until a ride operator hauled him aboard a boat. And the remains of the older brother weren't found until the next day. In 1980, a recent high school graduate, a young man, was killed on the People Mover because, again, he was climbing from car to car as the People Mover entered the tunnel, and he stumbled and fell onto the track where oncoming cars crushed him. In 1983, an 18-year-old boy drowned in the rivers of America. He'd been drinking quite heavily that night, it says. And he took an inflatable rubber maintenance boat and was unable to control it. And I guess it flipped or crashed or something, and he drowned. In 1984, a 48-year-old woman was killed on the Matterhorn. About 2/3 of the way down the mountain, she was thrown from her seat into the path of the oncoming bobsled, her head and chest becoming pinned beneath its wheels. Apparently, she did not have her seatbelt fastened at the time of the accident. But she was alone, so nobody can actually confirm that. On Christmas Eve of 1998, a Disneyland cast member and 2 guests were injured, one fatally, when a rope used to secure the sailing ship Columbia as it docked on the rivers of America tore loose the metal cleat to which it was attached. It sailed through the air and struck the heads of 2 guests who were waiting to board the ship. One of the guests was declared brain dead 2 days later and died when his life support system was disconnected. He was 33 years old. And then the last one that's listed on here, because again, this article is from 2003. So I don't know if anything else has happened since then, but a 22-year-old man in 2003 died and several other guests were injured when a locomotive separated from its train along a tunnel section of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. He bled to death after suffering blunt force trauma of the chest. I know there was another one too that was on here a long time ago. Well, first of all, there's one of a cast member who was killed in the America Sings ride because it's a rotating stage with walls separating the different sections of the stage, and then they would just rotate to the next section. She got crushed between the moving wall and the stationary wall, and it killed her. And then there was another girl who was scalped on one of the rides, and again, I think hers was that she wasn't buckled in, and she stood up at the top of one of the hills right before the drop, and her hair flew up and got caught in something above, and it scalped her. It was pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. So yeah, that's all I have for today's video. I've been doing this for an hour now. That's great. I'm going to have a lot to edit. I was thinking I'm going to do an easy video for myself, and turns out I recorded for an hour, and now I get to edit it all down, but whatever. So thank you again to Jester for the suggestion of the story in the beginning that led me down this hole. And thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button below. If you have any suggestions for videos you'd like to see, true crime or otherwise, please leave those in the comments below. If you want to see more, please subscribe. I upload new videos every Wednesday. And other than that, I will see you guys next week.